All right, before we get into chapter 44, I wanted to sort of give a review of chapters 41 through 43. And I wanted to, again, we're in a courtroom-like setting. So this lesson will be in two parts. We're going to look at the courtroom setting as far as Isaiah and his audience were concerned. And then we're going to look at another kind of, we're going to keep the courtroom open for modern times. And we're going to be looking at some criticisms that some will levy against Isaiah, and namely the Deutero-Isaiah theory, the idea that, let me back up. The reason we're doing this is because Isaiah is about to call by name Cyrus. And predictive prophecy is a big part of the book of Isaiah. It's a very important part of the book of Isaiah. And so I wanted to make sure we understood the context in which this predictive prophecy is given, and how this courtroom works out in Isaiah's day, as Isaiah is given this prophecy. And then I want to keep that courtroom open to critics of more modern times that would say, that would dismiss predictive prophecy through different ways. So we'll do that next week, hopefully. But today, I want to remind ourselves that we tend to open up the Bible and read as though Isaiah sat down one day and began typing or writing. And he just like your favorite novelist would do, just sat down one day and started putting together a story, and he wrote it, and then he sent it off to the publisher, and it was published maybe later in the year or next year. That's not what happened with Isaiah. In fact, there are different contexts in which books are written in the Bible. A good bit of the New Testament was written as letters, epistles, written from the apostles or the writers of the Bible to real people. And Isaiah, backing up, we have the letters like Leviticus, where it's written as law. And there are different contexts. Isaiah is also written in its different context. Isaiah is writing over a period of many, many years. If you look at Isaiah chapter 1, just remind ourselves, verse 1, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So over the reigns of 4 different kings, Isaiah's prophecies are coming out. And we have various different points within the book that we are told specifically when he's writing or when these prophecies are coming. In chapter 6, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. So that vision, he's telling you when that took place, and he's recording for you when that took place. Chapter 7, and it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah. So this is not something he just sat down and started writing and finished. This is something that happened over a course of the reigns of 4 kings. And so when we open up chapter 41, and the reason I kind of went down this train of thought was I was looking at chapter 41, noting that that Isaiah is mentioning who we know to be Cyrus, but he doesn't mention him by name. And I was asking myself, why? Why is he not mentioning? He's very evidently speaking of Cyrus here. Looking at chapter 41, verses 1 and 2, keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength. Let them come near, then let them speak. Let us come near together to judgment. Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, gave the nations before him, and made him rule over kings? And he gave them as dust, gave him as the dust to his sword, and as driven stubble to his bow. He pursued them, and they passed safely even by the way that he had not gone with his feet. So he's mentioning who is very obviously Cyrus. He's mentioning also in chapter 44, he's mentioning him by name. Chapter 44, verse 28, he that saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple, thy foundation shall be laid. 45 and verse 1, thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. So I asked myself, why? Why does he mention who is very clearly Cyrus? Why does he describe Cyrus in chapter 41 and then name him in chapter 44 and also name him in chapter 45? Of course, the chapters, verses were not there when Isaiah wrote. We understand that. But just why does he describe him and then name him later? Any idea why? God may not have told him the name. Exactly. He at least told him not to mention him, or the Holy Spirit did not guide him to call him by name, right? He was not guided to call him by name, first of all. That's a simple answer, I think. But why? Why wouldn't is there design in this, was my question. And I started to think about it. In the court of law, which is where we are in chapter 41 and following, it's all written as though it's a court case being presented, right? When somebody's up on the witness stand and let's say the prosecutor is grilling a witness and it's one of the defense's witnesses, does the prosecutor give away where his line of questioning is going usually? No, he's usually got very specific questions he's asking. And if he's a masterful prosecutor or interviewer, you're going to have no idea where he's going with it until it's too late, because you've already answered, you've already provided your answers, and you're either going to be impeached as a witness, or you're going to be found in your crime or whoever's crime that you're taking the witness stand for. So the prosecutor doesn't reveal where he's going before he goes there. Does that make sense? So if you are calling someone to the witness stand and you want to expose them for being a liar, for not being trustworthy, you're not going to tell them where you're going before you go there. And that's where my mindset was at. Of course, I cannot. There's no indication between chapter 41 and chapter 44 of any kind of time period that passes specifically. But we know it's happening throughout the book of Isaiah, right? So I can't say for certain that there's an amount of time that passes, and we'll just see. First of all, I think I have on the docket, the courtroom of Isaiah, chapters 41 through 45. We'll talk about the reeb pattern, and the fact that it's not just poetic literature. This is the language of a courtroom. All of these, we have several. I think it's on this next slide. We'll discuss this in just a minute. All of these words, some of these words are specific to a court case or legal cases, right? So we'll have the reeb pattern. We'll have a trap being set. Evidence is issued and the challenge is opened. And the evidence is given in part, not in full, in part. Then you have open courts. So let me go back. The challenge opened. Who's on the docket? Who is being called? Who's being challenged? The idols, the false gods, and those that worship those false gods in Isaiah's day and the day of them in captivity. Remember, this is Isaiah's prophecies are going to be known to those who are in captivity. He's speaking directly to those in captivity. So you could imagine Daniel, who we know was familiar with the prophecies of Jeremiah, was likely familiar with the prophecies of Isaiah as well. Just Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, also known as Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, right? They're in captivity and they are being pressured into doing what? They're being pressured to fall down and worship the gods of the Babylonians. But they've got it in their memory. Isaiah called these idols, these false priests, these false gods, he's called them to the witness stand to testify on their behalf. And they're going to remember what kind of testimony they could give. And so we're going to see the challenge opened. We're going to see open court where those defendants, those false gods, they're exposed in the gap, in the silence that we see is going to take place. Then we have the trap that was set. The trap springs when Cyrus is named, and then 160 years later. Did you know this challenge would be open for 160 years? Because Isaiah gives them, first of all, tells them where this king, this deliverer is coming from in chapter 41, in verse 2, who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, gave the nations before him. He's telling you where he's coming from. He's not giving you all the information. But in chapter 44, he names Cyrus. He's given those false gods, the worshipers of those false gods, enough time to say, hey, give me something. Predict something. Tell me something about the past that you were able to predict. And tell me something about the future. We'll see if it happens, right? So that challenge is opened. And then we see the trap springs when Cyrus is named and the verdict is sealed. That would happen ultimately for those in captivity's purpose 160 years later. And so we'll see that the rope is being given. You ever heard that expression that you're giving them enough rope to hang themselves with? Well, they're going to do that with their silence, the rope and the reckoning. And then finally, the response of the witness. We'll find that Ezra has the receipts as we open up Ezra chapter 1. So just want to keep this theme of the courtroom. Next week, or actually, I only have 10 minutes, so maybe in a few weeks, we'll get to part 2 of this courtroom where we open up objections. And why are they objecting? Because the specificity of this prophecy could not have, there's just no way man could have done it himself. So what do they have to do? They have to attack the origin of the text, and we'll open up that when we get there. So first of all, we have the language of a legal proceeding. Let's back up, because I brought it up last week, and I meant to start off with this actually. 1986, you have the NBA three-point challenge, or the three-point contest, and the night before, all the contestants are in the locker room, and Larry Bird strolls in. And what he says to the entire locker room is, which one of you guys are competing for second place? Basically saying, I'm going to win this thing. And so which one of you guys are coming in second? He proceeded to go out there and won the contest, won the three-point contest. And that's just one Larry Bird story. He was known for doing this, calling his shot, right? So God, what we're going to see here, he is calling his shot. He's calling it in the days of Isaiah, and we see swish in 160 years later when Persia comes on the scene. Pretty powerful stuff, and that's why man wants to attack it. That's why man wants to explain away this document as having been written after the fact, as having been written by more than one Isaiah. And they have to do that because there are things at the beginning of Isaiah that no man that lived 160 years later could write with such accuracy. So they have to explain that Isaiah wrote this part, but some other guy wrote the end, right? After the fact that Cyrus was born. So we're going to address that in part 2. So God's calling his shots. There's a difference between saying, I might win, and which one of you is coming in second, right? There's a difference between that. So the specificity is important with this prophecy. God gives names. He names names, tells you who. Not only does he name Cyrus, we've talked about this, he names Babylon as coming to be the world power, and then Babylon falls. And it falls to this man that he's referring to as Cyrus. So there's specificity. He's being specific. And you could be as vague as you want with predictions and come up lucky, but he's being specific, naming names, and then he's doing it publicly, just like Larry Bird did in the locker room. You know, he could have said that under his breath to himself, and nobody could have held him accountable afterward, right? Just think about if he had lost that 3-point contest. He would have a lot of trash talk being directed back at him. So the Bible is credible, and we're going to see that looking at this through the lens of those that are in captivity, those that are receiving the prophecy from the man Isaiah himself. We're going to see how this was powerful for them. And if we look at it through their lens, we'll see how powerful it is for us to read this and to be confident that this is God's word. It can be none other than God's word. So that we see a legal proceeding. God's proving himself in a way that these false gods cannot prove themselves. So this first Hebrew word, reeb, is found in Isaiah chapter 1, 17 through 18, chapter 3 and verse 13. It's found in 41 and verse 21. Let's read that. 41 verse 21, produce your cause, saith the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons, saith the King of Jacob. So this word reeb, where it's rendered there, cause, is a legal dispute. It's a lawsuit, basically. And the one we find who's opening up as the prosecutor repeatedly throughout the book of Isaiah becomes the advocate as well. So the same God who says, I have a reeb against you in Isaiah 1 is saying by Isaiah chapter 51, 51 and verse 22, I will contend, I will reeb with those who contend with you. So he's a prosecutor, he's also an advocate as well. You have this word mishpat, which is a judgment, a legal case, a binding verdict. So where the reeb is the act of disputing, the mishpat is the outcome. The word, so this word is at the intersection of the courtroom. It's at the courtroom, Calvary, and the kingdom. Mishpat, the binding verdict. Then you have this word, probably pronouncing it wrong because it sounds like our brother's name, Ed, or it looks like Ed to me. It means witness, one who testifies under legal obligation. And I believe it's, we'll look at it later, but in Leviticus, the witness that has witnessed something is, if he is silent to what he's witnessed, he is culpable of the crime. So it's a pretty important thing. One who testifies under legal obligation. We have the word Mishiach being used of Cyrus, which is the anointed one, who is as you see up there, the only non-Israelite in the Old Testament to receive that title. It's also said of him in chapter 44 and verse 28, he is that shepherd. That designation is assigned to him. And then we have repeated throughout this passage the word sedaq, the righteous, those who are vindicated, as a legal verdict pertains to. So God has three roles in this proceeding. He is, first of all, the plaintiff. He is the one bringing forth charges against the gods of the nations for their failure to know or predict, their failure to demonstrate themselves, basically, through their knowledge of things past, present, and future. Then you have the judge. He's the role of the judge. He's presiding over these proceedings and will be rendering the verdict. And he's also the primary witness. There's another witness. We're going to see that's Israel. But with the primary witness, he is submitting predictive prophecy as exhibit evidence, and which is something no false god, no idol, or worshiper of those false gods could do. So he's got three roles in this proceeding. And you have, again, throughout this courtroom scene, a legal brief. Chapters 40 through 41, you have the opening argument, which is God, none can compare to him. None can do these things. And here we have this unnamed man, who we later find to be Cyrus, is mentioned. And the challenge is issued to these gods. Show me what you got. Predict something. I'm laying it out here. Here's Exhibit A, that I am God, that there is none beside me. Prove to me that there's none beside me by doing what I do, basically. Does that make sense? Chapters 42 and 43, Israel is named as a witness. So Israel takes the stand, and you have this 160-year open court beginning. And the defendants, these gods, have the floor. They have the chance to prove themselves. And again, I don't know what the gap is between chapter 41 and 45. I don't know that, but I keep coming back to there's got to be a reason he doesn't name them, first of all. Chapter 44 is a decisive exhibit where Cyrus is named. Not only is Cyrus named, a city is named, an action is specified, and then the idolaters, those false gods, are exposed by their inability to do anything the like which Isaiah in his prophecy is able to do. Chapter 45, Cyrus, we find, is commissioned, and that verdict is rendered, I am the Lord, and there is none else. And so finally, chapters 46 through 48, we'll see that Babylon will fall. Israel's redemption is sealed. Cyrus comes on the scene. We'll read of that in Ezra, chapter 1, and case closed, right? Court is dismissed. So this is what we're going to look at. This was just an introduction to part one, and we'll look at the trap. Let's go back to that first. We'll pick up here with the trap being set, and go through all these. Just think of it as a court case. Just the way we understand a court case to be, the way we understand witnesses and evidence being presented. It's a pretty clever thing that Isaiah did, I think. And so we'll look at it that way, and then we'll address the accusations of modern days. And by modern day, I mean actually 1775. Is where this Deutero-Isaiah theory first existed. Any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Your first question had to do with why he was not mentioned earlier. The fact that your name was Steve tells me nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we see that in the earlier, he's described earlier, coming out of the east and so on.
Right.
So we know about it. So what his name is doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't believe me. Here's his name.
Yep. That could be the case, yeah. So in my imagination, again, this is my imagination, I picture these those that subscribe to these false gods and idols as saying, oh yeah, from the East. I think his name is going to be, or he might predict something about it. And guess what? What's going to happen when he, years down the line, Cyrus comes into power and it's actually Cyrus? Well, he's going to be found to be a liar. And then those that are in captivity are going to look around them and they'll see all these people worshiping false gods, and they're going to say, our God called his shot. And that's exactly what happened, right? And so that's why I've named it or why we're calling this God called his shot.
It could be the length of time, we don't know. And if the name's up earlier, guess what? You may have 30 Cyrus show up.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's another interesting thing. This is Persia is not a world power at this time. Persia is not even in anyone's imagination. And, Yep. Yeah, that's the specificity is important, isn't it? Because he's specifying who they're to be looking for. And he's going to name names, a name that probably it wasn't like a John today or anything. It was probably not a common name, because guess who wasn't in power? Guess who didn't exist in their form that they were in 160 years later? Persia. Persia didn't exist. Persia as a world power was not a thing, right? So thank you guys. We'll pick up next week.